Hello, I'm going to talk about the push grip and why the push grip can be such a no-no. And I have a lot of people in training that will use that push grip, or I'll see that and I will correct them or redirect them to not use that push, that can be really dangerous for the wrist, the elbow, and the shoulder. And the question is always, well, that's how I was taught. I was taught with a push grip. I was taught with a push grip as well years ago, and have evolved and changed over the years as we've started to understand more and get a better understanding of pull techniques. So I'm going to explain it to you, and I think that the momentum is the key part to understand here. People tend to use the push grip when they don't have the momentum to keep their body out and away. So what I mean by that is, any spin that we're in, this outside arm, if that arm is becoming a push that's creating this, what we call wrist break, that's a big no-no. There's a lot of pressure that comes into the wrist that then leads into the elbow and up into the shoulder. And typically what happens is, as we're moving slowly in a spin, or we don't have the strength to hold it, we start to sink and try to keep our body off the pole. So there's this big push that happens, and you can see when the shoulder starts to jack up by the ear, the elbow might even be hyperextended or bent, but this wrist break here is really the big problem. So whenever there's that big push, and I can usually see that because there is typically sinking that comes along with it. So the lead hand is pulling down with that shoulder, and there is a push and pull in all parts of pull. So even in spinning, but what I want you to think about with this is that when you're pulling down with that lead arm and the outside arm, if you're thinking of that as a push, I want you to redirect that and think of that not using the push, but using momentum to pull you away so that you don't have to push and stiff arm that pull. So if you have momentum, it's going to naturally pull you out. This hand is just gentle here to keep you kind of steady. As you start to slow down and feel the need to push, that's when you want to plant your feet and come out of it. So in any of your spins, typically I see these in more of the off the pole spins where you don't have any leg contact, your straddle spin, your arch spin, chair spin, things like that. There might be, and I use this very, very cautiously, a slight push. But it should never be a big push where all the weight is then sinking back into this. There can be a little momentum's pulling you out, and there's just this slight push. Again, I use that term very lightly because the momentum should pull you out. If you're in your spin and trying to get into it and you are stiff arming the pole and really pushing to keep your body off the pole, then that's where that injury is going to come from. So you want the momentum. So I'm going to show you what I mean. Typically, I see this in the straddle spin. So if I'm walking around, I want that big out and in power with that outside leg to lead me into it, so it naturally pulls me out and away. Big swing. I barely have to touch the pole with that hand. Okay? So it's that big swing, push off of the inside leg. It pulls my body out and away. I don't need to push. Okay? When I start to feel myself sinking and coming back in close to the pole, typically that's when everybody starts to stiff arm and try to hold it out there more. And you'll see the shoulder up by the ear, again, pressure into the elbow, and that wrist break. So that's your cue to step back out of your spin. All right? So what I see many times is this. And I hope I can spin around to see it here. Okay? So you can see how that can be super dangerous on the shoulder, the wrist, and the elbow. So momentum pulling you out and away. So really understanding that's going to give you that power. Think of it as, again, you're not pushing to get your body off the pole. You're using the momentum to pull you off the pole so that you don't have to push. You just don't want that wrist break, that pressure into the elbow, and certainly then that sinking into the shoulders. So if ever you're in a spin or you see a student that's in a spin, another one is the chair spin, I'll see this. Okay? So they're sinking, they're pushing, trying to hold themselves out there, their body's starting to come back in, and they're trying to push to keep their body out. Okay? Big no-no, big red flag, wrist break, elbow injury, shoulder injury. So again, we pull down, but the push should not be coming from the arm. It should be more of that body weight pulling out the way because of the momentum. So chair spin here. I have a very light pressure into the pole because the momentum is pulling me out and away so that I'm not sinking. Hopefully that makes sense with that push grip, okay? The reason I like to clarify that is because we do use a push-pull in everything and pull. And if you're holding a pose, not spinning, you really get a better understanding of how that push-pull comes into play. And a lot of times then we might use that full bracket. But the full bracket in a spin, okay, when you're doing like a straddle spin or something like that, is a no-no because it's a huge potential for injury because all that weight then as you slow starts to sink down. Again, it's not so much the wrist break here, but it's the sinking down and the weight of the body that's then jacking back up into the shoulder. So again, momentum is going to pull you out and away, and really, then you don't require the need to push. Use the momentum. Think of it as a one-hand spin. But when you're holding a pose, it's easier to balance your push-pull. When you're in spin and you're moving, not that the pole's in spin mode, but when you are creating the spin and spinning around the pole, you are in motion, and creating that push-pull is harder to do to prevent the injury in the joints. So if you think of using the momentum to pull you out and away so that you don't have to stiff arm and push. Okay, so that's the understanding on the why we don't push and rely on that push grip in spins.